Thank you, Chairman, and thank you both for the hearing today. I think this is really important. Assistant Secretary Estenos, realizing the full potential of this landmark legislation requires that we get LWCF funds out the door in a timely manner that works for both the agencies and also the private landowners involved. I'm really concerned about some of the bottlenecks in that process, and you mentioned some of them, but they're really testing the patience of very well-meaning, willing sellers with a conservation ethic, and ultimately may lead them to sell their properties to be developed as opposed to being conserved. In particular, I'm told that the property valuation process has really become an increasingly and often unreasonably time-consuming part of the overall acquisition process. In fact, I've heard that appraisals that literally used to be completed in a few months are now under the Department's Appraisal and Valuation Services Office, taking as much as 2 years or more. How do we fix that?
Senator, thank you so much for the question. It's such an important one, and it's one that internal to Interior we're having a number of conversations about and focused very closely on. Let me agree in the strongest possible terms with your statement that in order for us to maximize the benefits, we've got to get this money out the door and working on the landscape. I couldn't agree more with that statement. And making sure that the federal land acquisition process is formulated in a way that does that is critically important. You've pointed out one specific step in that process that has become quite lengthy. And, it's this, what you're touching on here is the tension between trying to create a valuation and appraisal process that is transparent, that is accountable, and that is, that injects integrity into the process is very important, and certainly the taxpayers deserve that kind of accountability. But we have to find a way to balance that with the mission.
And Secretary, I don't think anyone is asking for an appraisal process that is not transparent.
That's right.
We do this all the time in the real estate industry. Appraisals are a thing. They don't take 2 years. And everyone wants a good deal for the taxpayer. I mean, I don't think anyone up here would, we want these dollars to go as far as they can. We just want them to be effectuated efficiently. And it used to get done in a few months when it was done regionally. And when it got pulled back to DC, it became a multi-year process. And I will tell you, there's a project I'm working on right now in New Mexico where we decided to go with the state, even though many of the funds are coming from the federal government. We decided to go with the state as the agency to run the project, to manage the project, simply to avoid that step in the process.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. This is sort of the point that I was trying to make, which is to, we can't separate our valuation and appraisal process from the mission, essentially. And I think that finding the right balance is where we're at now. I think we're swinging in between sort of extremes of how to approach that, and I couldn't agree more with you that we've got to get that right. The numbers I've seen is that acquisitions can take anywhere from 6 months to 36 months, which you're absolutely right. 36 months doesn't work for most willing sellers.
Really hard on people.
That's right.
So I would just urge your attention to this issue. I'm going to run out of time, so I want to switch over to Mr. French real quick. And I appreciate your focus on the role of some of these funds in access, public access. And you and I have talked extensively about the need to defend the public's legal access rights, whether that's in New Mexico or Alaska or Michigan or Montana. And we've talked a lot in recent years about the crazy mountains in the Gallatin. And I continue to be concerned with what I think are inconsistencies in the Forest Service's approach to public access. And we had an exchange a few months ago, and I want to follow up on that, because in a 2015 letter, the Custer Gallatin National Forest Supervisor wrote in a letter that the Forest Service maintains and holds unperfected prescriptive rights, in particular up Sweetgrass Creek to the north, based on a history of maintenance with public funds and historic and continued public and administrative use. But in current litigation, the Forest Service and the Department of Justice is claiming that now there is not a prescriptive easement on Sweetgrass Trail. These decisions affect access in every state in the nation. Why is the Forest Service and DOJ changing its position on public rights of access on that trail in particular? And what does that mean for trails everywhere in the U.S.?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I mean, let me start off first by saying our approach is to defend access in all the places we can as a stated policy. In that particular case, and I'd love to follow up with you more directly afterwards and maybe bring in some other members of our team, in that particular case, based on the actions of the landowners there and others, our ability to defend that we're not able to according to state law. My understanding is they have fulfilled many of the obligations that have changed our ability to defend those access rights. But it's very complicated. I know this is a concern of yours. It is not a broad policy. We handle these things on a site-by-site approach, and I absolutely commit to sit down with you and your staff and go through all the details afterwards.
Thank you, Chairman. Ranking Member.